Let's say China.
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 There are next door neighbors, and you can actually see Russia from land here in Alaska.
You go over to China.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
Trump statement, tweeting out insults to Angela Merkel. What's he doing?
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host.
Yes. Hello and welcome. I am James Andrews, and you are listening to So This Happened, the only news you need if your name is Sergey. It is Tuesday, worst day of the week, the 11th of July 2017, or as it's also known, Amazon Prime Day. That's right, get yourself over to Amazon and snag some awesome deals. And I'm going to be honest with you, I had a little look at it, curiosity, and I think it's mainly just shit that Amazon can't sell, so they knock 15% off, put it on sale, and people go, oh my god, it's a steal, I absolutely need that foot massaging device. Anyway, it sounds like maybe Russia tried to interfere with So This Happened at the very beginning of the episode there. Did you hear that? Which is interesting because today, Donald Trump Jr. tweeted a very long email thread between him and certain people about the Russian meeting that took place during the election campaign. And I won't go through the entire thing. If you want to find it, it's everywhere. It was tweeted and it's been shared on pretty much every news network in the thing. But there are a few choice little gems that I do want to share with you. The first of which is my favorite sentence in the entire thread, and it simply says this. This is obviously very high level and sensitive information, but is part of Russia and its government's support for Mr. Trump. To which Junior responded, if it's what you say, I love it, especially later in the summer. It's very John Lagar, isn't it? This is very espionage stuff. And he says he released this email chain so to be completely transparent, and that's great. I mean, transparency is lovely. But not everybody is having that same opinion. Now, a number of senators and congressmen have come out saying that this is very worrying information, particularly Senator John McCain, the Republican from Arizona. As I've said many times in the past, there is another shoe that will drop, and there will be other shoes that will drop. Now, Senator James Langford, who's a Republican from Oklahoma, he said, the constant drip, drip, drip to be able to get one piece for one more story of something doesn't help the White House, doesn't help our investigation. Let's get it all. So there he's suggesting that, look, these little snippets of information that we're getting, Junior today releasing this little email chain with all these little tidbits in there where nothing actually says collusion. It just sort of hints at, maybe he thought he was going to get one over on Hillary, and yeah, what the hell, I'll use that if you've got it. And then Senator Tim McCain said, we've now beyond obstruction of justice in terms of what's being investigated. This is moving into perjury, false statements, and even into potentially treason. Wow. Mark Warner tweeted, this is black and white. Trump officials at the highest level knew Russia was working to aid Donald Trump and welcome Russia's interference. Senator Dick Durbin said, attention Donald Trump Jr., federal law prohibits a person to solicit, accept, or receive a contribution or donation from a foreign national. So these are just tweets that are coming out today from these senators who are looking at this email chain, and while there's nothing massively incriminating in the chain itself, it hints at something a little bit deeper. This is sensitive information, and it shows how much the government loves Donald Trump. And then you've got Junior saying, oh, well, if it's what you say it is, I love it, and we could use that, especially a little later on in the summer. nothing points at actual collusion, and nothing is laid out bare. It's all sort of just, hinted at, and you have to sort of read between the lines. And I suspect Donald Trump Jr. released this just to make, more confusion, because now people are looking at this going, oh my god, there's got to be something else there now, because look at all this he's suggested. And they're just playing the game. They continue to play the game, which Donald Trump has been playing for months now. And, one day, perhaps, they'll play the game and they'll go just a little too far, and something will get slipped that is actually substantive. Time will tell. But what is interesting about this is it is the first confirmation that there was meetings between Russian officials and Donald Trump's administration. And while there's nothing there that will make people say there was definitely collusion, it definitely, it's a smoking gun. And enough of that, because in far more important news, Gangnam Style, that awful Korean song, is no longer the most played video on YouTube. It has lost its crown, and it has been replaced by Wiz Khalifa and Charlie Puths. I don't know if he's Charlie Puth. I don't know. P-U-T-H. Puth. Anyway, his video, See You Again, has now beat Gangnam Style for the most plays on YouTube. And the number is preposterous. The current count of that video is at 2 billion, almost 3 billion. I mean, it's incredible. Actually, I'm gonna pause record. I'm gonna go listen to it, and I'll report back what I think. See you in a moment. Well, see you in half a second because of the magic of editing. Okay, so I listened to it, and I will say it is not necessarily my cup of tea, but 3 billion people can't be wrong. It definitely doesn't get a recommendation from So This Happened. It's really sappy, and I think I prefer Gangnam Style. I can't play any of them because of copyright issues, so you'll just have to go to YouTube, pause, go to YouTube and listen to it. Did you do it? Okay, brilliant. What do you think? Do you like it? Thumbs up, thumbs down? It's a thumbs down for me. Very boring. And in a bizarre case of life imitating art, a man who apparently just watched Joe versus the volcano died after jumping into a volcano in Hawaii. Lee Adonis, 38, jumped into a volcano in Hawaii, and, surprisingly, he died, which is generally the outcome of jumping into a volcano, as much as Tom Hanks convinced us that if you jump into a volcano, you will be immediately blown out of the volcano by the lava erupting, and you will become a god-like figure. Unfortunately, Mr. Adonis, Adonis, and he didn't become a god from jumping in the volcano. It's a twisted fucking world, people. That is just not right. Now, I'm glib about it, but it's actually quite a sad story, and we do send our love to Mr. Adonis's friends and family, because that is always sad. And in another story that just sort of makes you, scratch your head and go, okay, an Oregon woman has received 3 years probation for licking and groping a fellow passenger on a flight last year. Heidi McKinney, who's 27, apparently smuggled some alcohol on board an Alaska Airlines flight and got drunk, and then she touched a woman who was sitting next to her, who was a 19-year-old, and she, groped her boobs and her genitals, and took some photos with her. And now she's been prosecuted. And I think her main problem was if she had been sitting next to a bloke and started grabbing his crotch, she would probably not be getting a sentence right now. She may be filing for divorce, perhaps, but she certainly wouldn't be getting probation. So here's the advice. If you're sitting next to someone and you feel like having a grope and you're a, attractive lady, have a look. And if it's another lady, don't grope her. But if you look and sort of a little man, perhaps with some spots, that would be ideal. Maybe a little bit overweight. Grope away, you'll love it. And now we're going to turn our attention to something completely different. Gerrymandering. I know, don't turn off the show just yet. Bear with me, because this is important information. Gerrymandering, what is it? Well, It's the practice of intentionally setting up voting districts within a state to establish a political advantage for a particular party. Now, everybody does this. Republicans do it and the Democrats do it. And if you look at a map of your state, or if you don't live in America, look at a map of a state and type in there, electoral districts. What you're going to see is, rather than nice sort of cut-out squares or circles or shapes that make sense, what you're going to see is just these bizarre shapes. And there's a fun game you can play, actually. See if you can find an animal in there. There's a lovely one in Wisconsin that looks just like a dog on its back when you're tickling its belly and its little legs twitching. Now, you may have come into contact with gerrymandering and never have known it, particularly in the recent Georgia election that took place that we all looked at with Karen Handel and John Ossoff. There were many people who went to the polling stations on the day of the election and tried to vote, and they were told, sorry, but you can't vote in this election. And they said, well, what do you mean? I live literally there. That is my house. This is my polling station. Why can I not vote when, my neighbor who is 2 blocks that way comes here to vote? Well, that is because of the practice of gerrymandering. And what it essentially does, you take a district and you look at it and you say, okay, so to win our demographics, we need this percentage of black people, this percentage of white people, then economic percentage, we need rich people, we need poor people. And then you sort of cut the district up so that in one particular area, you've got a high concentration of, rich white people or poor black people or rich black people or poor white people. And that all helps your particular party. And gerrymandering is back in the news because Barack Obama came out in support of a Democratic campaign against racial and partisan gerrymandering. President Obama spoke at a fundraiser for the National Democratic Redistricting Committee, or the NDRC, which is much easier to say, and they are hopefully going to be instrumental in the Democratic Party's efforts to regain its footing at both the state and the national levels. And the whole idea of getting rid of this gerrymandering phenomenon, which really has taken over US policies or politics in the last few years, is that when you have a district that is very highly Democrat or very highly Republican, what you're getting is not a perfect representation of the entire district. So by creating a less competitive, more fair district, you're going to get somebody elected who is actually sort of a perfect balance of everybody that lives within a certain district. And this is going to be an uphill battle for the Democrats because even though both parties draw congressional and legislative districts to their own advantage, Republicans control more state legislatures. And therefore, they have a lot more to lose than Democrats if gerrymandering goes away and districts are purely drawn, fairly or as they were before, rather than doing the crazy dog on its back and its belly tickled shape. And of course, most of the districts and states that use gerrymandering are really drawing these on racial lines. Racial minorities are much more likely to vote Democrat than they are Republican. So when the Republicans draw up these districts, they make sure that if there's a sort of neighborhood just on the other side of the road that is predominantly minority, they're going to make sure that when they draw their district that they're just going to skirt the outside of that particular neighborhood so they don't get a chance to vote in the one district. So it is going to be an uphill battle, but it's all about fairness. We really need to get back to where gerrymandering is not an issue in elections at a state level. And that is the end of the show. So thank you very much for listening. You can always follow me on Twitter at SoThisHappened. And if you like the podcast, please subscribe, leave a little review if you feel so moved. And I will chat with you tomorrow. And I promise we may talk about some more important things tomorrow. But today I just didn't feel like it. There's so much on the news about Donald Trump Jr.'s emails. I sort of briefly talked about them, but I didn't want to spend the entire time talking about it. So I just found the most ridiculous things to talk about. So have a good night, and I'll chat with you tomorrow. Bye-bye.